This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources outreach to safeguard the elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. And yes, it's me, Joyce. I know I haven't been here for probably about, 6 weeks. I was on vacation for a little bit and then had some major surgery, but I'm recovering and I'm back. And I understand Brian took good care of you guys while I was gone, and you will see him back next month for an episode. So you can find more resources at our website, roseadvocacy.org. You can sign up for our newsletters. We send one out via email and one via snail mail every month. Just go to the homepage and scroll down to the bottom. You'll see where the signups are. You'll see our social media links, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And all of our radio show episodes and shorts are hosted on our YouTube page. Or we also have a Let's Talk About Scams.com website where they're all hosted as well. So today I'm so excited. We have a guest, Erin West, that we're going to talk about cryptocurrency and pig butchering. So Erin's the founder of Operation Shamrock, a global nonprofit uniting law enforcement, industry, and everyday citizens to disrupt the world's fastest growing form of transnational organized crime, pig butchering scams. After 26 years as a prosecutor, including 8 on the REACT high-tech task force, where she became known for her relentless pursuit of crypto criminals, Erin now leads a cross-border fight to expose the scam economy, mobilize action, and protect both victims and the trafficked workers forced to run these schemes. She's also host of Stolen, a podcast that brings listeners inside the darkest corners of the scandemic, where love is weaponized, billions are laundered, and real people pay the price. A sought-after speaker and educator, Erin continues to equip and inspire audiences around the world to use their skills, platforms, and tools to fight back. So let's welcome Erin to the show.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, we got a little bit of buffering here.
Can you see me, Joyce?
There we go. Hey, Erin.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Yeah. So why don't you just give us, I read your bio, but just tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we're going to get right into this.
Yeah, I was a prosecutor for 26 and a half years. And the last 8 years of my career, I did high-tech crimes. And the last 3, I was just inundated with people who were victims of scams, things that started out as what they thought was an innocent interaction on a phone that led to a romance that ultimately led to them losing all of their money in a new scam called pig butchering. And I'm delighted to be here to educate about it.
Nice. And I had heard about pig butchering a couple years ago. In fact, I talked to a gentleman, I believe he was up in the state of Washington, who actually went through and told me his experience about meeting somebody online and they had a friendship. It wasn't necessarily a love interest, but she started talking to him about this investment and all of these things. And he said, I'm normally the type of person that I won't invest or give my money unless I research and I know what's going on. He goes, and I had no idea what cryptocurrency was. So I started researching it. And he said, and lo and behold, pig butchering scams came up and there was a checklist. And I read through the checklist and she hit every single thing on the checklist. Right. And that's one of the things we tell people is do your research, right? If you don't know about like cryptocurrency, do your research, find out, what it is, what it's about. And there's a good chance you're going to see stuff out there about scams. So, and I know I personally don't really know much about cryptocurrency. I always equate it to, it seems to be like it's some form of money, but it's like in the air. You can't touch it, right? And it's like, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with it. So tell us more about the crypto.
Yeah, you've raised a couple of really interesting issues. I think the first thing is that we don't need to be afraid of crypto. I think a lot of people would like to make it feel like it's so hard to understand, it's so complicated. But quite honestly, if you can understand Delta Sky Miles, if you can understand a stack of poker chips, you can understand cryptocurrency. It's essentially, we all agree for the moment that this stack of poker chips is worth $100 per poker chip. And you can trade those poker chips for jewelry at this place, or now even Christie's says you can buy real estate with that cryptocurrency.
Oh, okay.
More and more, we're going to see cryptocurrency adopted as a way to transact in other ways, and we're also seeing that that really mainstream banking is adopting this in a way that you can easily convert money back and forth from cryptocurrency to US dollars through your bank account combined with a cryptocurrency investment account. So we don't want to be concerned. We don't want to allow ourselves to be misled about cryptocurrency.
That's a good point. Right.
And so the scammers have chosen to use cryptocurrency for really good reason. And for exactly what you said, that we don't know much about it. And so they can tell us all kinds of things about it. And we generally
have no idea. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that you said that I found interesting too was the idea that essentially that because it's hard to understand, we should be researching it. And so what I will tell you about this particular scam is that this is a mental manipulation like I have never seen before in my life. And I know that Dr. Dove is a frequent guest, so I know that you are familiar with her really well-organized thoughts about how manipulative these scams are.
It seems like it's a romance scam on steroids.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And so these scammers are building on two different things. One, they're building this really trusted relationship that for a lot of people who come out of it, they say, this was the most, I've never felt so cared for. I've never felt so seen, heard, understood, loved. And Dr. Dove will tell you that is definitely part of the technique.
Right.
Yeah, it's highly manipulative.
Yeah. It just plays on your emotions, right? They're now like with romance scams. I know a lot of times, they find people on Facebook. I think that's kind of like the number one platform that they find people. And especially like if you have a widow or widower as your status, that's kind of a red flag. But that's exactly what they're looking for. Or if you've talked about, right, your loved one passing and all that stuff, and they're just exploiting that loneliness and that need for love and to have a partner again, right? And but this pig butchering is just, it's not, my understanding is they're not necessarily professing their love that they're going to come back to wherever you're at or come to wherever you're at and marry you and all of that. They're striking up a friendship to get you to trust them.
I would say that more frequently it's a love relationship. And I think that sometimes people don't want to be honest about that, because I think people engage in this quite frequently when they're already married. And and what you have hit upon is something that is super relevant to this, and that's the loneliness crisis. We've got a crisis. The World Health Organization has acknowledged this, that essentially people, it's something like 1 in 5 people report being lonely once a week, or some high number. Like, we've got a really big crisis where people didn't come out of COVID well, and some people still haven't gone back into the job where they were before. So we've got a significant number of people who just would really welcome some companionship. Yeah. And so when that text shows up on their, this is so funny. I just looked at my phone to give you an example. And as I look at my phone, I'm getting one of those job scams where somebody has reviewed my, so
I got one yesterday.
That's how pervasive it is. So what I would say is that, when you get something on your phone, on Facebook, somebody wanting to be your friend, for a lot of people, that's a welcome distraction from the rest of their life. And then what you talked about is exactly right, that they build whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, but they do it over time. This is a long con. They don't start talking about cryptocurrency on day 3 or day 13. What they really do is they build up this trust.
That absolute trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to talking about cryptocurrency, you are in a situation where, wow, you think you have found the person that meets all your needs. And along the way, that person has been showing you an elevated lifestyle. They've been showing you that they travel to Hawaii and that they drive a Range Rover. And you have every reason to believe, when they say that they made their money in cryptocurrency, that that's how they did it.
Right, right. And there are a lot of people out there that have made a lot of money truthfully in cryptocurrency, right? And let me ask you this question. So I hear a lot from people, and I read stories about retired people, older adults, going into a gas station or a shopping mall and just feeding cash into a cryptocurrency ATM machine. What was the whole purpose of bringing those cryptocurrency ATM machines out? Because I'm trying to figure out, I'm thinking that if somebody is legitimately investing in cryptocurrency, they don't need to go to a cryptocurrency ATM machine.
No, the purpose of those machines is to steal your mom's money. That's the purpose of those machines. And you're absolutely right that if I'm legitimately investing in cryptocurrency, I am going through a license, not a license, but a regular crypto exchange that we're familiar with the name of it, like crypto.com or Coinbase. And I'm not paying the exorbitant fees that are associated with a crypto ATM. There's just no reason why I would be taking out cash and putting it in and doing the lengthy process of putting it in $100 by $100 into a machine when I can electronically move all of that.
Right. I was thinking about that recently, and it was like, I can't figure out a legitimate reason why a legitimate investor in cryptocurrency would have a need to go to a cryptocurrency ATM. It just didn't make sense, but yet they're all over the place.
They are. And, when you talk to people who run those machines, they will give you some stories about how they're for unbanked people. But the fact is, that's not where they're located. They're not located in that population. They're frequently located. I have a friend who works with me at Operation Shamrock, who works in a wealthy community in New Hampshire with something like 15,000 residents. And she says there are 35 crypto ATMs there.
Wow.
Nobody's unbanked in this retirement community in New Hampshire. And what they are is retired wealthy people who make great targets for this. And so what we're seeing, Joyce, that's really impressive is we're seeing states stand up to this, and we're seeing regulation of these machines and even outlawing of these machines in certain municipalities. So I'm grateful that there are can-do people who are ready to stand up and say, not in my town. We're just not going to do that. And so it's always good to see people standing up for the vulnerable, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, I don't know where this story came out of, someplace in the United States where, and it was on social media. This gentleman had walked into a gas station and he saw the owner literally taking the cryptocurrency machine out. And he started talking to him and he's like, why are you? He's like, because I see all these older, elderly ladies coming in and just feeding this machine full of cash. And I know they're getting scammed. And he goes, and I don't want to be any part of this. And I thought, good for you. Good for you, you know, for doing that. But I also had heard that with at the federal level, that they've got a cryptocurrency committee, whatever it is, that's starting to really look into this, and they're supposed to be looking at putting more safeguards out there. Do you work with any of them on that, or have you heard anything?
Well, I'm not totally familiar with that, but what I am familiar with is the AARP has done a really amazing job of drafting legislation and helping to shepherd it through in different states. And they've worked with some of the law enforcement members from the Crypto Coalition that I work with, that to get different states to create regulations that make it more difficult for these scammers to do business.
Good. So in your work, have you found I think we pretty much all know scammers are on Facebook, right? There's so many fake accounts out there. We've actually reported a lot of them, and we get the cursory response back. We haven't seen where this has caused any problems, so we're not going to take it down. And it's like, if you would just look at this and you could do some reverse image searches, you could do things that are at your fingertips to figure out that this is not the true person's profile, right? And I don't know if they're getting any better at cracking down on that or not, but I know we haven't seen in profiles that we've reported that they've been willing to take them down.
This is really one of my hot buttons, because I get angry at it's very easy to say, oh, this is all happening overseas and we can't do anything about it. But the fact
it's happening right here in the United States.
Yeah, the fact is we've got American companies that are enabling these bad actors to access our friends and family. And these companies have the best tech in the world. They absolutely could identify, just like you're saying, do a reverse image search, start looking at where in the world these people are logging on from. And
IP addresses,
right. And there's just a million different ways that these bad actors could be identified and removed from their platform. And the fact is, they're not doing it. They're not doing it in a proactive way. And when we are reporting it to them, we are met with exactly the response that you got of, this doesn't violate our community standards. And unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves. And it's really not acceptable when we're not talking about a small problem. We are talking about having a generation's worth of wealth stolen from us.
Absolutely.
And there's an obligation to be a better world citizen than that.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, when we do our program out in the community, it's our vision is retirement should be the best years of your life. It needs to be protected at all costs. And it's like, you spend your life raising your family, working, saving your money, you pay your house off, and you're like, I've got this nest egg and this is how I want to live out my retirement. I talked to a financial planner, and if they go that route, and I'm good, I've got enough money to live till I'm 100 or 95 or, whatever it is. But then you get this scammer that comes along, preys on their emotions,
Yep.
because that generation is very trusting. I grew up in that generation. We're very trusting, right? I even today find myself going, oh, I trusted a little bit too much on that one, right? And it's hard. It's a hard habit to break, Hopefully Chicago doesn't come after me for going after with their title of their song, but it is, because it's a good feeling to have that you could trust people. And now all of a sudden, everyone's telling you can't trust anybody.
And isn't that terrible?
It
And
is.
is that where we want to be? Is that where we
No.
want to live? It's
No.
horrendous that that's where we find ourselves, but that is exactly, that's the message I give everyone when I'm asked, like, what can I do about this? Well, the fact is you cannot trust any electronic communication that you did not solicit, period.
Absolutely.
Everybody's
Absolutely.
a scammer until you find out otherwise. And I'm raising 2 young men, and I'll tell you, like, that's my message to them is do not trust anything that's on there. Make them prove themselves. Don't click through, go to that website yourself and log in and find out.
Right. You go to the
Call them
verified sources. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And the piece that you bring up that really resonates with me is that people have worked their lives to enjoy these years.
Yeah.
And what we're watching happen in real time is that more and more of those retirees are getting stripped of everything they have.
It's just awful.
And it's just not recoverable at that
Right.
point. And people are going back to work that thought they were long done.
Exactly.
And it's people are losing their homes. Like, this isn't a small amount of money. We're not talking about the romance scams of yesteryear where perhaps you thought you were sending money for a sick child or a business situation and you lost maybe $50,000 to $75,000. We're talking about people losing every penny they have.
$500,000.
Yes. And that's routine in California where I come from. Like, the numbers are crazy. And then again, like, it doesn't matter what the number is because it's what the number is to that person.
Well,
and
exactly.
that person has lost everything.
Right. Right. I mean, somebody could lose 100,000 and it means one thing to one person and it means something totally different to another. One person might be like, okay, well, I can absorb that. Another person might be like, that's my life savings. I now have to rely on the government for my housing, my food, my basic needs.
So then let's talk about that, right? That now we're creating obligations on the government to take care of retirees that were previously set up.
Well, exactly. And this is preventable, right? It's preventable. And that's why when I look at Facebook and they're not taking those profiles down, it's like, you're going to wait until someone's reported that they've lost their life savings, and then you're going to react to it. And I think we've become a society of reacting. And it's like with us at R.O.S E, it's like, no, this is preventable, and it's preventable through education and getting people to understand, that this is going on and you can't trust people and you need to be your advocate, right? And have your trusted person and all of that stuff, because in the end, unfortunately, you're either going to give the money away or you're not, right? It's the scammers can have all this different technology out there, and they could kind of overtake if they figure out your account login, that they could, and you've reused it over everything, they could get into your bank account and stuff. But I think a lot of the scams are coming from the social engineering and how they're manipulating people's emotions.
You're right. And you talked about something significant before when you talked about a trusting generation. So the scammers have studied us. They've had people with PhDs studying us. They know what works. They've been at this for years, unimpeded, with no friction. And so they know that people respond to authority. They respond to immediacy. And what really works for people of that generation is to mislead them that their money is at risk in some way, or that their money has been tied to child pornography, or that
Right.
there's a warrant for their arrest, or
Absolutely.
they haven't paid something that they need to pay.
They didn't show up for jury duty, right?
All of it.
I just read that recently. This lady lost, I want to say it was like $20,000 or something.
Yeah.
And it was because she was like, well, I didn't know, maybe I did miss jury duty, right? And so it was that she perceived that they were the authority and that they knew what was going on and that this
Yep.
was urgent. She needed to pay it or else she risked going to jail. And right. And it just puts your whole mindset into an emotional state and you're not thinking rationally. And this is one thing that we tell people is like, I think we can all think back to some point in our life where we have made a decision based on emotions. And then whether it's a couple hours later, a day later, whatever, you've thought about it and gone, oh, if I had been thinking rationally, I never would have made that decision. But like you said, scammers know that. They've studied this and they're very, very good at what they're doing.
They really are, which leads me to say, well, why aren't we very good at stopping this, right? They've put a ton of energy into how to take our money. And I know that there aren't enough people on the other side saying, well, we're going to put energy into figuring out how to make sure you can't access our people. And that if you do access our people, they are educated about the fact that you are looking for them.
Right.
And you're trying to steal their money.
Right. They're going to stop it. So it's just going to take time, I think, and getting out there and talking to more people and educating them. And it's just one of those topics, at least in my opinion, that I've found, in talking to people to get them to set up the program, right, is a lot of people don't want to think about scams. Right. It's not the fun thing. It's not having an entertainer come perform or having the ice cream truck come or having somebody come play bingo or, these games. It's a topic that nobody wants to think about, but it's to the point now where it has to be thought about. I know we follow the IC3 reports that the FBI puts out, and California is always in the top 3. Arizona is always in the top 10. California and Florida, I think, are always in the top 3. The other state, I think, kind of varies, but Arizona's been 4 and 6 in losses. And if we look at the losses, and this is what's reported, right?
Right.
And which is a small percentage. But if we look at what Arizonans in 60 plus lost in 2020 compared to what they lost in 2024, 600% increase. I can imagine it is at least that much for California.
For sure. I don't have that specific number, but what I do know is just the increase in crypto fraud
It's
losses
huge.
are up 40% over last year. And those, again, those are what is reported.
Right.
And so when I see the 600% number that you're giving me, even the 40% number that I'm saying, is that where else is there that dramatic of an increase in a crime typology and nobody's on top of it? And that's just unacceptable that
That's a good point.
We don't have a plan and we are getting kicked in the face and on repeat. And so I have grave concerns not only about the amount of financial loss, but I have grave concerns about what this does to our society. You brought up the idea of we're a trusting people, and I think that's a nice attribute.
It is.
And we are getting to a point where we can't be that trusting group. And I'll give you an example. Like, I needed someone to cut the trees in my backyard. And I went on vacation and he said, I'll cut them while you're gone. And when you come back, you pay me. And we're trusting each other that if he cuts those trees, I'm going to pay him. And I'm trusting him that I hired him to do it and that he's going to do it. And that's a stupid example. But the point is that if every single thing we do has to be verified and escrowed, and we lose just some of the the kindness and ease of doing transactions with people. And
right. Like
that's
you
where
said,
we find ourselves.
it's a good attribute to be able to see the good in people, right?
Yeah.
And to trust people. And now, like you said, it's like, okay, well, you might on the outside act like you trust, but on the inside, it's like you've got to have that skepticism, right? And we call it a healthy skepticism, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, being a victim of a scam and losing money hurts financially, but the emotional and the psychological toll it takes, and unfortunately, we see suicide happen with the older adults, because of this exploitation and these scams. So in your bio, you had mentioned that you worked, I want to make sure I get it right, the growing form of transnational organized crime. So are you working with, or let me preface that, do you see that a lot of these pig butchering scams are coming from other countries, or are you seeing a lot of it starting to creep up in the United States as well?
So what we know is that the United States and other countries are under attack, and they
Mhm.
are under attack by Chinese organized crime.
Okay.
Chinese organized crime has set up scam centers all over Southeast Asia and now in other parts of the world where they have they are boiler rooms. There are mills of people who are living 6 people to a dormitory room, and their job is to steal our money 16 hours a day. And if they don't steal the money, they are beaten. And so I'll often talk to victims and they'll say, "Oh, I should have known this. I should have known." Well, no, you shouldn't. There's no way that you're going to win a battle of psychological manipulation
Right.
against someone who does this for a living.
Right. 16
And
hours a day, 7 days a week.
yeah. And so that's our situation, and it's growing. And so when I say transnational organized crime, I mean that there are organized crime syndicates that are running this in a very sophisticated, industrialized way against the rest of the world. And they're doing it by using human trafficked workers, many of whom are from Africa, to do this work. And they like the Africans because they speak English, and they can be easily talked into leaving their African country, believing that they are going to make more money in a data entry center in Bangkok.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, they find out that they have been tricked, they've been deceived, and now they are under lock and key. They are put into a scam facility that's guarded by men with AK-47s, and
Wow.
this is their job, and they cannot leave.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's just, you have the whole thing of scamming people, right? Which is just totally awful. But now you have the added layer of the people that are doing it are trafficked. They're not there by choice.
No. And I think that's a surprise to a lot of people. Or I often hear people be like, "Oh, I was messing with this guy." And I was like, yeah, that guy is being human trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to my dentist, and my dentist was saying that, recently she keeps getting these job scam things, and she
Right.
responded, and she was like, "Please stop sending me these." And the person responded and said, "Thank you for at least responding so that I don't get beaten." And she was
Oh,
talking to me as she's cleaning my teeth. She's like, what is this guy talking about?" And I was like,
wow.
"Oh, well, they have quotas. They have quotas of they have to engage in conversations with people, and you responded to a text, and that's a win in their column." So
Wow.
it's a very dire situation. And it's kind of, when I started learning about pig butchering and I started learning about, oh my goodness, people are losing money. Oh my goodness, it's all their money. And wow, they're taking out loans to pay the quote unquote taxes. And then, oh my goodness, this is being run at an industrial level. And wow, are you kidding me? The people that are behind it are human trafficked. You can't write a movie like this.
No,
It's
no.
insanity.
Right. Right. It's what's that phrase? You can't make this stuff up.
You really can't. You
Yeah.
really
It's
can't.
just, so with a lot of it happening in China, or run by the Chinese, in the Asian countries and stuff, have you seen, during prosecuting and things like that, that if you're dealing with someone that's been the scammer in the United States versus someone, whether it's the organized crime or it's a handful of people over in another country, makes a difference if you're able to recover any of the money that was stolen?
Yeah, I think it's important to set the stage for what victims can expect, because the fact of the matter is nobody's being prosecuted for this. That's the crazy part. There have been very few arrests and almost zero convictions involving
Wow.
these kind of cases. But what there has been is some financial recovery. So
Okay.
what I would say to victims is that when I talk to victims, I always say, okay, well, there are two pieces here. One, is anybody going to get arrested? Probably not. Number two, is there a way to recover your money? I think the kindest thing we can do for victims is to be honest with them and to level set expectations from the outset.
I think that's great.
what is happening in the United States is they are reporting to the FBI and they are not hearing anything back, and they are going to local law enforcement, and local law enforcement is saying either we don't do crypto or we'll get to it or something, but they don't have answers and they need answers. And so one of the proudest things that I did as a prosecutor was, in working with my task force, we figured out a way to recover stolen funds for victims.
Nice.
Now, cryptocurrency is confusing to people, but quite honestly, can be a blessing. The beauty of cryptocurrency is it's as if we all can read from the same book and say, okay, Joyce, on July 28th, Joyce sent Erin $25. Like, we can all look at that same ledger, and maybe it doesn't say Joyce, maybe it has like a string of letters and numbers, and maybe mine also has a string of letters and numbers.
But you can tie those back to the account owner.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we can all see it. And so what the team did at the REACT task force in Santa Clara County was figure out how to trace your stolen money. And we traced it to an overseas crypto exchange. And by that, I mean, it was Binance, and they do not operate in the United States because they didn't want to be subject to United States rules.
Okay.
And so for a lot of people, that would have been an easy dead end. But we operated from a what if we could point of view. And so we reached out to Binance and said, here's what's happening. Can you help us with this? And they said, well, we will accept a search warrant signed by a judge. Okay. So then we had to figure out how to wrangle that through an antiquated legal system that is not ready for cryptocurrency seizures, but we did that. And then by the end of 2022, we were able to get money back to 8 victims. And by the end of 2023, nice. We were able to get money back to 23 more victims.
Nice.
So it can be done. And I work with a coalition of 2,400 law enforcement agents now, and we routinely are able to make seizures.
Nice.
Even if we are routinely making seizures, the number of victims out there is so massive that it's still like winning a lottery to be able to get any of your money back.
And if you get some back, is it like pennies on the dollar? Because like you said, there's so many people that have been victimized.
Yeah. And, the bad guys are really good at what they do. We talked about how adept they are at mind games, and they're really good at money laundering. And
they're moving the money all over.
Yeah. They're moving your money super quickly. And so that's where we find ourselves, is in a situation where by the time a victim gets up the nerve to report it to someone who knows how to do this work, frequently the money is already gone.
Yeah. And, that's something we heard a few years ago from one of the assistant U.S. attorneys in Arizona, was that they were seeing that that a lot of older people were being money mules, and
Yes.
they didn't know. They thought they were just doing someone a favor. They were being nice for whatever excuse the person gave them as to why they couldn't, transfer the money. And it was all done in the guise to, if they can keep the money going from account to account to account, by the time law enforcement catches up with it, it's already out of the country.
Yeah.
And depending on where it goes in what other country, a lot of it depends on, is that country going to be willing to work with the United States? Right? Some countries are just like, no, for whatever reason, they have
Right.
enough. They don't have the manpower because they've got all this
Right.
other crime of their own that they're working on, or they just choose not to. But yeah, that's, it's why I just am so much into the whole prevention side of it. Right? Because even if they were to get half of their money back, right? It's great that you can get some, or, some of the money back and stuff like that. But the emotional toll that someone has to go through between realizing they've been scammed and getting their money back. I mean, how do they recover from that? I mean, that's tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was a prosecutor for 26 years. I did murder cases. I did sexual assault. I did people who had been kidnapped and left for dead. Right, like really horrific things. But quite honestly, I have never seen victims as destroyed as these financial crime victims.
Wow.
And that is because they've lost their entire financial footing, their confidence, their security. But they also, at that same time, they are losing this person that became a really trusted ally, whether a friend, a loved one, someone they thought they were going to marry, whatever it was. This person was significant to them. And then to realize, oh my God, that person was behind this thing from the get-go. It's more than some people can handle.
Right.
And I routinely saw people getting mental health treatment, even checking themselves in, doing self-harm, and ultimately suicide.
Yeah.
I hear from adult children whose parent has committed suicide saying, I didn't know what happened until I started going through his computer and I realized what had happened to him.
Yeah. And, the whole reason why I started R.O.S.E 4 years ago, actually, what is the date today? The 7th?
August 19th.
We're coming up here on the 23rd. Will be exactly 4 years that
Congratulations.
We've been in business. Was I had a loved one that was in a romance scam.
Yeah.
She had lost her spouse, and I totally believe that's how I believe that's how they found her, was through Facebook. Right.
Right.
And it was in talking to her family members, they had no idea what was going on because she wasn't talking to them about this new love interest, right? It wasn't until she started asking for help with basic needs stuff that all of a sudden the family was going, okay, this doesn't make sense. You have enough, right? And then they started looking into things, just as you said, right? And it wasn't like they went to her and explained it to her and she was like, oh, okay, I'm never going to do that again. Had her in that absolute trust. It took a couple interventions because the victim is in that absolute trust, and it is so hard to break. I've gotten calls from people that are like, we've had the police out to talk to, whether it was mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever it was. We've talked to them. We can't get them to see. And the first thing is like, I'm sorry, they're in that absolute trust. And, I'll try to give you some ideas to do. I'll be more than happy to talk to them with you present, right? Because I don't know, maybe somebody totally unbiased, not involved in any of it. Maybe, it'll break the cycle. Who knows? You just don't know, but it is so difficult. It is so difficult.
Sure is. a victim, one of the things we do at Operation Shamrock is we listen to, we have 2 calls a week where we listen directly to victims about what they've experienced for the purpose of understanding where things went wrong in the criminal justice system, in the banking system, and social media.
That's
And
great.
so, yeah, it is. It's good for all of us, because I think one of the key issues is that victims are not being heard. They don't feel like anybody cares. They don't feel like anybody's listening to them. Nobody's trying to fix this. And so I think it works well for them. For me, it's an amazing opportunity to get real-time ground floor information about what's happening in our country.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody's case is different, right? Everybody's experience is different.
You're exactly right. And what's interesting is, we always think we've heard it all, and then a victim will come on and we'll be like, ooh, that's a different twist on it. Oh, didn't know that, hadn't seen that happen before. And the reason I brought it up is there was a victim who was telling us, well, his father was still in it, and he was talking to us about it, and he was saying, it feels like an addiction. Like, it feels like we can have a conversation with him, and we can tell him, and he'll be like, okay, you're right. I'm going to get out. And then before you know it, he sent another $20,000. And so there's something worth studying at the psychological level of how to break this cycle in a functional way that doesn't destroy families, because that's a whole other piece of this that is like an unspoken piece that is ruining our pig butchering is destroying and creating chaos in a million different ways. And one of the ways is just the destruction of families.
The family dynamics,
Yeah, I spoke to another adult son, and he was like, I'm yelling at my dad and I'm telling him this is a scam. And I was like, oh, that's probably not the right technique. But there's just a lot of destruction on a million different, and like, how genius is this whole thing that we're going to attack the United States in a way that destroys their confidence in law enforcement and government, that ruins families. It's really super well played. I've got to hand it to them. This is expertly designed.
They've done their homework.
They've done their homework.
Yeah. And like you said, that's where those of us that are in this fight, right. To try to prevent this and get the education out there. I think there's a lot more people that need to start listening to us, as far as the people that make decisions and make laws and stuff like that. Right. It's
they need to realize the gravity of what's happening here, that this isn't a small issue, and this isn't an old cat lady making stupid decisions. These are very intelligent people who are being misled about an investment opportunity. And they've been provided a context where it makes sense. They're in communication with someone who appears to have made a lot of money in this. They're already having FOMO because they know other people have made a lot of money in this. And they're presented with an investment platform that looks genuine.
Right. And the person that's giving them all this information seems very knowledgeable. Right. It's all it's a perfect storm.
It is the perfect storm. And then you throw all the emotions in it, and the endorphins, and you put together the feeling of new love, and you put it together with the feeling of, oh, I'm also getting wealthy. Like, you can't compete with those kind of emotions.
Yeah, it's tough. But I was just looking at the clock. We've got to wrap up. Or we're going to be getting little notes here. It's time to stop.
Well, the conversation has been easy. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would love to have you back to continue this conversation, because this definitely is not a one and done. I think people have to hear about these things on a regular basis in order to make prevention a habit, right? I was just equating it this morning. Like, when you first learn how to drive and you're a new driver for a number of years, you see a police car and you automatically want to slam the brakes on, right? That's like a panic. Well, as you become a more experienced driver, when all of a sudden you see that police car and you know you're speeding, you kind of just let your foot off the brake, right? A little bit, right? And so I kind of equate that to, you need to hear, it's gotten to the point, you need to hear about scams, prevention measures, just so when you are contacted, scam comes in the back of your mind, right?
Yep. I've heard about this.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyways, but thank you so much. And I did want to let everybody know that they can find your podcast called Stolen.
Yeah,
I did
it's Stolen with Erin West.
Stolen with Erin West. And then your website for Operation Shamrock, if they want to find out more information about the pig butchering and what you guys are doing, is operationshamrock.org.
That's it.
Okay, awesome. And yes, let's definitely have another conversation because I think we just started to hit the surface on this. And maybe I'll have to talk to the producer if we can do 3 people and we can get Dr. Dove in here.
Would love that.
That would be great. That would be awesome. So thank you very much, Erin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you listened in the whole time. This was full of great information about pig butchering scams and what they're like and how they work. And Erin's going to be back so we can continue this conversation. Don't forget, go to roseadvocacy.org. You can find a lot of resources. There's also operationshamrock.org to find a lot of resources on the pig butchering. And hit subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode of Let's Talk About Scams. Until next week.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.